soul as claimed by the religious people is scientifically possible. So this is our view of the hereafter, that we live a life in the form of soul or spirit. And what would be the dimension of that spirit, how it would have a dimension in the forms of length and breadth, etc., that is not possible for us to judge. It's not within our means. But something like that can happen and should happen if we are to live again. Now, the authority for this, religious authority, again I'm entering the arguments. So let's stop here, please. These are some of the major differences about our concept. And then hell and heaven. Hell is also corporal according to them, carnal hell and carnal heaven and so on. And we interpret them as spiritual forms of existence after death.
Jazakallah.
Any other question? Or you are going to put the second question as well?
Should I?
Okay, no, it's up to you. If there is a lady here who wants to say a thing, I think you better give her preference. Huh?
Good evening. You talk about the physical body, but what about the real I, the higher self? Do you work, or, we're only a shell, the physical body is a shell. What about the true essence of our being, the higher self? Do you work with your higher self? You talk about receiving...
I'll come to that. I'm not talking of mystical terms.
No.
I'm talking of hard realities. All among us, all living beings, have a center of consciousness. Some are more developed, some are less developed. That is the separating line between death and life. The moment life was created, even in the form of the most rudimentary amoebas and things, they had a consciousness. They somehow knew what was good for them, what was bad for them. They reacted against certain things, they were drawn into other things. And they knew somehow they must survive, and they knew what would make them survive. The consciousness is very, very dull, agreed. But life is consciousness. What I'm saying is that this consciousness went through the long evolutionary period, so that every higher form of life became more conscious and more aware, until the stage of man or Homo sapiens was reached. And this consciousness, which is found in all forms of life, then expanded beyond all proportions to the previous experiences. Animals can be conscious of themselves, their surroundings, what they see, but they cannot rationalize things. They cannot see beyond. They cannot conceive what universe is. They cannot even dream of thinking of life after death and so on. So all these areas of highly refined consciousness are created by God for the purpose of man. If man had not reached that stage of high refinement and vastness of his consciousness, he could not be conscious of God, and the purpose of the whole universe would come to naught.
So how do you believe we can expand our consciousness here on earth?
Yes. We continue with our realizations. Now, I was comparing previously Homo sapiens with other earlier, less developed forms of life. But this comparison also applies between human beings and human beings. There are those who reject God.
Yeah.
and their consciousness remains limited to all that is here, and their life has only the purpose to satiate themselves with whatever they live with and live for in this world. So because they do not have that expansion in their consciousness, which includes the existence of God, so they are deprived of those special values which have to be inculcated in the soul, so that after death it feels the nearness of God and familiarity and a sense of reward of getting closer to the beloved one. So they are sort of inward-looking things, like animals in that respect, which don't visualize things beyond them. But there are other areas of differences in consciousness between a highly educated person and a less educated person, an ignorant brute and a highly sensitive person and a highly refined person. So we live with an aura of our consciousness around us. So we are bigger by that aura or smaller in accordance with the diminution of that aura. So every man cannot be judged by the same yardstick in this area.
So do you believe every day that our consciousness expands through life's experience?
Right.
So how can you expand your consciousness to a greater degree within you so that maybe you can help other people? I mean, for yourself, what...
Yes, this is the answer to this is already provided in the Surah Fatiha, the first surah which we read in every namaz, in the first chapter of the Holy Quran, and elsewhere also in the Holy Quran. The Holy Quran educates us in the area of further refinements and further expansion. And it tells us that it can only happen if you genuinely and rightly know the names or attributes of God. And if you realize what God is, you can only realize it with the help of understanding His attributes. So when you understand His attributes and you know that you have sprung from Him, you have come from Him, to return to Him in the best form would require you to imitate Him in all His attributes that you understand. So in this way, for instance, the Holy Quran, in the surah which I was speaking of, tells us of God being Rabbul Alameen. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. All praise be to Allah, who is the provident of the entire universe. So if you expand the area of your providence beyond your family and close circle of friends, and not only be kind to other human beings, but also to the animals and the very existence itself, then you are truly imitating God. And by imitating God in just one attribute, imagine how much it expands you and expands your consciousness. So this is the way, this is not just a philosophy.
No.
It's a solid education, a scientific education as to how you should expand your consciousness and refine yourself.
Some religions or ways of life provide things like mantras, things where we can focus our mind so that we can actually rise above our lower self. Because a lot of us know what's right and wrong, but it's more difficult to put those into practice. So by perhaps repeating things...
See, it is there that religion of Islam, and all religions I believe, differ from philosophies and mysticism. In philosophies and mysticism, you try to delve deeper into your own self and find out the truth within you. But there the problem is that it varies from person to person as to what truth they may discover. And people belong to different stages already. Like some are coarse people, some are hard-hearted, some are soft. There's so many ways.